Humans are unquestionably the most perplexing species we have yet to come across, Commander VX stated to the gathered Zorth and High Council. His four upper limbs gestured emphatically, while his lower limbs remained perfectly still. A notable feat considering they had examined over 3,000 sentient civilizations. The assembled officials, 22 of the most influential Zorthens in the galaxy, shifted uneasily on their hoverpads. The chamber's ambient lighting throbbed with a worried purple hue, mirroring the collective unease. "Commander," Supreme Counselor 6 interjected, her voice emanating as a crackle through her speech apparatus. "Your initial report indicated inconsistencies. Could you provide further details?" She paused, then added with a semblance of Zorthan humor. "Ideally before the next cosmic expansion phase commences." The assembled officials emitted harsh, staccato clicking sounds, the Zorthan equivalent of laughter. Commander VX triggered the holographic display with a flick of his sensory tentacle. "Observe humans in their native environment. They are concurrently belligerent and benevolent. They decimate ecosystems while zealously protecting others. They develop remedies to prolong life while also engineering weapons of unparalleled destructive power." The display showcased diverse human activities: children playing in parks, soldiers training, surgeons performing operations, engineers constructing skyscrapers. "Most bewildering," VX continued, emphasizing each word with a purposeful tap of his appendage on the console. "They intentionally subject themselves to discomfort to attain what they term fitness. They ingest harmful substances for gratification. They labor relentlessly to develop automation, then fret over the potential loss of employment to the very machines they've created." General Krax, head of the Zorthen Defense Forces, leaned forward. "Are they a menace?" His voice sounded like crushing gravel, a consequence of injuries sustained during the Melanic campaign. VX hesitated. "That's intricate. They allocate vast resources to combat, yet equivalent sums to healthcare. Their medical infrastructures are comprehensive and ubiquitous. But here's the truly peculiar part. They've never consolidated as a species. They remain fragmented by imperceptible boundaries they call borders, perpetually clashing amongst themselves." "So they're rudimentary?" Science Minister Zeph concluded, her bioluminescent patterns flashing dismissively. "No, that's precisely the point," VX exclaimed, frustration manifesting in the rapid color shifts rippling across his epidermal layer. "Their technology is progressing at an accelerating rate. In the mere 300 rotations we've monitored them, they've made advancements that required our civilization millennia. What they lack in cohesion, they make up for with ingenuity fueled by rivalry." The Supreme Counselor's eye stalks extended fully, a sign of profound interest. "Your counsel, Commander?" "I propose sustained observation from a secure distance. These humans are erratic. One moment they're composing poetry about celestial bodies. The next they're devising methods to harness those same bodies for weaponry. They generate beauty and atrocity with equal fervor." VX paused dramatically, allowing his exoskeleton to shift to a somber shade of deep blue. "But whatever our actions, we must not antagonize them. Not until we comprehend them more thoroughly. Because for all their self-annihilating tendencies, there's one characteristic that renders them truly perilous." "Which is?" prompted General Krax. "When imperiled, particularly when they're young or their medical practitioners are threatened, their internal dissensions evaporate instantaneously. They metamorphose into something else entirely, something fearsome." The council chamber fell silent, save for the gentle hum of the environmental systems. "Proceed with your investigations, Commander," the Supreme Counselor finally declared, "but formulate a thorough threat evaluation protocol, just in case." A just-in-case scenario, as it turned out, that would arise far sooner and prove far more inadequate than any of them could have imagined. "This cannot possibly be accurate," Science Officer Jess muttered, tweaking the sensitivity on the observation probe for the 12th time. "Rerun the assessment," ordered Lieutenant Pre, barely out of the academy and still exhibiting the vibrant orange hue of youth, tapped rapidly on the console. "Evaluation confirmed, sir. These are indeed their medical installations." The observation deck of the Zorthan scout ship, Asterisk Nebula Seeker. Asterisk buzzed with activity as the crew analyzed the incoming data streams from Earth. They had positioned themselves in high orbit, their sophisticated cloaking technology rendering them undetectable to human sensors. "But observe what they're doing, Jess!" exclaimed Pre, his epidermis shifting to a perturbed yellow-green. "They're incising their own species with rudimentary metallic implements. They're introducing foreign objects into their bodies. Those tubes, they're extracting fluids from some and infusing unknown substances into others." Commander VX entered the observation deck, his posture stiff with apprehension. "Status, Science Officer?" "Commander, I believe we've profoundly misconstrued human civilization," Jess replied, gesturing at the multiple screens displaying live feeds from hospitals across Earth. "These establishments we believed were for healing. They appear to be sophisticated torture facilities. The screens depicted operating rooms mid-surgery, emergency departments managing trauma patients, dental offices, and vaccination clinics. To the Zorthans, whose own medical practices involved non-invasive quantum regeneration, the sight was appalling. "Observe here," Jess continued, zooming in on a cardiac surgery. "They're halting this human's circulatory pump, what they term a heart, and connecting them to a device. And here," he switched to another feed, "they're perforating their oral cavities." Lieutenant Pre's color had faded to a sickly pale blue. "And examine these smaller humans. The adults are forcibly immobilizing them while piercing them with pointed objects. The small ones are clearly distressed. They're secreting fluid from their optical organs." Commander VX's appendages twitched anxiously. Could we have misinterpreted their societal structure completely? Perhaps these aren't healing centers, but punitive facilities? "That would align with our findings," Jess concurred eagerly. "Note how they isolate the infirm from the healthy, how they confine them to these platforms they call beds, how the uniformed individuals, evidently guards, regulate their movements and compel them to ingest substances." VX paced the deck, his brain clusters processing this disturbing new perspective. "What about these structures here?" He pointed to a display showing maternity wards. "Even more concerning, Commander," Pre whispered. "They appear to be procreation facilities where they extract offspring from the females. Listen to the vocalizations of agony, and afterward they immediately commence invasive procedures on the newborns." The command deck fell silent as the implications solidified. "This alters everything," VX finally stated, his voice hollow. "If humans institutionalize torment on this magnitude, they're not just unpredictable, they're barbaric." General Crax's voice crackled over the communication system. "Commander VX, I've reviewed your latest data transmission. The Defense Council has reached a verdict." VX straightened. "Yes, General?" "These installations constitute a blatant infringement of the Galactic Sentient Rights Accord. We cannot remain passive while a species systematically torments its own populace. Prepare for intervention." Jess and Pre exchanged alarmed glances. "What type of intervention, General?" VX inquired cautiously. "The sole kind that barbaric species comprehend," came the frigid reply. "Tactical strikes on all primary torture facilities, effective immediately. The fleet is already mobilizing." As the communication concluded, Commander VX experienced an unfamiliar sensation permeating his nervous system, something remarkably akin to what humans would term dread. "Commence synchronized benevolent intervention in 3, 2, 1, execute." Fleet Admiral Thraw's command reverberated through the neural network linking the 57 Zorthan vessels now positioned in Earth's atmosphere. The colossal ships had descended through Earth's cloud cover concurrently, their advanced stealth technology finally disengaging. To humans observing from below, it appeared as if the sky itself had fractured, revealing streamlined obsidian crafts that absorbed rather than reflected light. Armaments configured to precisely target all major torture installations, Weapons Officer Grill confirmed, her voice unwavering despite the gravity of the moment. "Non-lethal suppression fields active." Admiral Thraw levitated in the command sphere, his 6 appendages extended broadly as he interfaced directly with the fleet's tactical systems. "Bear in mind, we are emancipators, not subjugators. Our objective is to incapacitate their ability to inflict suffering, not to inflict needless casualties. Admiral, Communications Officer Vila interjected, her epidermis pulsating with pressing patterns. We're detecting extensive communication surges from the planetary surface. Their rudimentary electromagnetic transmission systems are becoming inundated with activity. Anticipated, Thra dismissed with a casual wave. They're apprising their leadership of our presence. On the primary view screen, tactical overlays highlighted thousands of structures across Earth's surface. Hospitals, clinics, medical research facilities, nursing homes, and dental practices, each pulsed with a sickly red glow in the Zorthan targeting systems. Principal, target secured, Grill announced, initiating neutralization beams. Across the planet, from the sprawling medical complexes of New York and London to rural clinics in remote regions of Africa and Asia, radiant violet beams lanced down from the Zorthan vessels. The technology was deemed humane by Zorthan standards, designed to disable electronics, immobilize defensive systems, and render occupants temporarily unconscious while Zorthan forces secured the facilities. At Boston General Hospital, Dr. Nora Chen was in the midst of elucidating treatment options to a leukemia patient when the lights flickered. Likely just a power fluctuation, she reassured her anxious patient. The backup generator will... The remainder of her sentence was cut short as the entire building shuddered. Medical equipment ceased functioning, monitoring systems flatlined, and through the windows emanated an otherworldly purple luminescence that seemed to permeate everything it contacted. In the pediatric ward of Johannesburg Memorial, Nurse Thomas and Becky were attending to a 6-year-old convalescing from appendix surgery when the child pointed at the window, exclaiming, "Look, pretty lights!" Before Thomas could respond, the light enveloped them both, and consciousness dissipated. Across Earth, millions of medical professionals and patients collapsed where they stood or lay. Life support systems malfunctioned, surgeries were interrupted mid-procedure, and ambulances responding to emergencies abruptly lost power, coasting to a halt. Aboard the flagship, the Righteous Intervention *, Admiral Thra surveyed the initial outcomes with gratification. Phase 1 concluded. Casualty evaluation? The ship's AI responded promptly, calculating, Admiral, preliminary projections indicate approximately 98.7% non-lethal compliance. However, there appear to be complications in approximately 1.3% of targeted establishments. Thra's contentment evaporated. Elucidate complications. In certain facilities, the neutralization of technological systems has precipitated the failure of life-sustaining apparatuses. Furthermore, some medical procedures were in pivotal phases that could not be safely discontinued. Before Thra could process this information, Strategic Officer Kep surged onto the command sphere, his color cycling rapidly between alarm red and horror white. Admiral, we've committed a calamitous blunder. Speak plainly, officer, Thra demanded. These installations, they're not torture chambers, they're healing centers. Kep's appendages trembled as he interfaced with the command console, retrieving the latest deep scan analysis. Our anthropologists finalized the thorough linguistic processing just moments ago. What we construed as restraints are protective measures. What we perceived as torture implements are sophisticated healing instruments. A stunned silence descended upon the command sphere. That's unfeasible, Thra finally managed. We all witnessed the invasive procedures, the evident suffering. Indeed, sir, but their physiology is fundamentally disparate from ours. What appears barbaric to us is imperative for them. Their healing necessitates physical intervention because they haven't evolved psychic regeneration or molecular reconstruction. They're performing the best they can with their level of technology. Communications Officer Vel's voice cut through the horrified silence. Admiral, we're receiving thousands of distress signals from the planet's surface. Their armed forces are mobilizing, and sir, I'm detecting nuclear weapon systems activating. Thra's exoskeleton paled to an ashen gray. Immediate all-fleet directive, disengage. Recall all neutralization beams. Deploy medical assistance drones with our regeneration technology. It's too late, Admiral, Kep whispered. The damage is inflicted. And the humans? They believe we've deliberately assaulted their most vulnerable. On Earth, pandemonium reigned. At the Pentagon, the Joint Chiefs of Staff had assembled in record time, their expressions grim as reports inundated them from around the globe. Simultaneous assaults on medical installations worldwide, General Rivera reported, her voice taut with controlled fury. Current projections place casualties in the tens of thousands, encompassing children, the elderly, and critical care patients. President Marcus Reynolds fixated on the satellite imagery depicting the alien vessels hovering above major cities, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the conference table. Alternatives? They've exhibited technology far exceeding our present capabilities, Defense Secretary Wilkins replied. A conventional military reaction would likely be futile. But we must respond, insisted Vice President Harper. They've attacked hospitals, for God's sake. That contravenes every code of warfare in human history. The President's National Security Advisor, Dr. Eleanor Jackson, cleared her throat. Mr. President, I advocate activating Protocol Archangel. A weighty silence descended upon the room. That's a theoretical last resort measure, the President stated quietly. We've never even verified if it would function. We've executed the simulations, sir, Dr. Jackson countered. And presently, it may be our sole viable recourse against an adversary of this technological supremacy. Back aboard Asterisk, the righteous intervention, Asterisk, Admiral Thraw was desperately endeavoring to establish communication with Earth's leaders. Transmit on all frequencies, all languages, he commanded. Make it unequivocal. This was a dreadful misunderstanding. We're here to assist in rectifying the damage we've caused. Communications Officer Vell worked frantically. Transmitting now, Admiral, but they're not responding. And our sensors indicate they're activating advanced weapon systems we didn't detect in our initial scans. What type of armaments? Thraw inquired. Strategic Officer Kep's voice was hollow and despondent. Unidentified, Admiral, but they appear to be employing technology that bears resemblances to our own quantum field manipulation, albeit more rudimentary and more weaponized. Before anyone could respond, the flagship shuddered violently. Warning signals blared across every console. We're under assault, Weapons Officer Grill shouted unnecessarily. Multiple projectiles approaching at near relativistic velocities. Impact imminent on vessels 3, 7, and 12. Unthinkable, Thraw exclaimed. Their technology shouldn't be capable of... His words were truncated as 3 Zorthan vessels concurrently erupted in blinding flashes of light, then imploded into swirling vortices that collapsed in on themselves. What in the name of the eternal void was Asterisk that Asterisk? Thraw whispered, horrified. Kep's appendages flew over his console. Analysis indicates, by the ancestors, they've weaponized their rudimentary particle accelerator technology. They're generating localized space-time disruptions. That's theoretical, even for us, Vell exclaimed. On the view screen, they observed as Earth's surface darkened in patches, power grids failing as the humans diverted all available energy to their weapon systems. Communication channels suddenly burst to life with a singular message, broadcasting on precisely the frequencies the Zorthans were utilizing. A human voice, frigid and precise, filled the void. Attention, alien aggressors! You have perpetrated an act of war against Earth by targeting non-combatants and medical installations. We offered no provocation, we initiated no hostile action, and yet you elected to strike at our most vulnerable. The message paused, and when it resumed, there was something new in the voice, something that sent involuntary tremors through every Zorthan who perceived it. Perhaps you deemed us feeble. Perhaps you deemed us rudimentary. You were mistaken. You assaulted our healers, those we value most, those who dedicate their lives to preserving life. So now we will demonstrate how we respond when the sanctity of life is desecrated. Admiral Thraw frantically signaled to Vell. Respond. Inform them it was an error. We misconstrued their medical practices. We believed we were halting torture. Vell attempted, but the channel had gone silent. And then across Earth's surface, something extraordinary commenced. Facilities that the Zorthans had overlooked in their initial assessment, research laboratories, military bases, and what appeared to be civilian power plants, began to pulse with energy readings that defied Zorthan comprehension. Admiral, Kep stated, his voice barely audible. I've completed analysis of their communication patterns during our assault. They possess a saying, first, do no harm. It's the core oath of their healers. He looked up, his eye stalks fully extended in terror. But they possess another saying, Admiral, an eye for an eye. And I fear we're about to ascertain precisely what that signifies. As if to punctuate his words, 12 more Zorthan vessels vanished in reality-bending implosions. And from Earth's surface, new signatures appeared. Smaller crafts launching into the atmosphere, crafts that moved with impossible agility and determination. They've been withholding, Thra realized, observing in disbelief as the human counterattack unfolded. All our observations, they were permitting us to perceive what they wanted us to perceive. On his private command channel, he transmitted a priority message to the Zorthan homeworld. Cataclysmic first contact scenario. Misinterpreted medical installations as torture chambers. Attempted benevolent intervention perceived as unprovoked assault on non-combatants. Humans responding with unanticipated technological capability and unparalleled unity. Advocate immediate diplomatic overtures at highest echelons. He paused, then added, if you don't receive further communication from us, comprehend this. We were erroneous about the humans. They weren't. Fragmented and self-annihilating, they were specialized. And we just assaulted their healers. Now, they're dispatching their warriors. Protocol Archangel is now fully operational, General Rivera announced, her voice carrying through the reinforced underground command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain. All participating nations report deployment readiness at 100%. President Reynolds nodded grimly, studying the holographic display showcasing Earth's unprecedented unified defense response. How long has it been since the initial incursion? 3 hours, 12 minutes, Mr. President, replied Admiral Donovan, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical screens. And in that time, humanity has accomplished what peacetime bureaucracy would have deemed unachievable. It was true. The alien assault on medical facilities had triggered something primal in the human psyche, a response so visceral and unified that ancient adversaries had instantaneously become allies. Chinese submarines surfaced alongside American carriers, Russian aerospace forces coordinated with NATO, and Indian and Pakistani military commands established joint operations. Our quantum physicists have adapted the CERN technology remarkably swiftly, Defense Secretary Wilkins noted, zooming in on the display. The space-time disruptors were theoretical yesterday. Today, they've already annihilated 19 alien vessels. Dr. Elena Petrova, lead scientist of the hastily assembled Archangel Initiative, stepped forward. Her eyes were red-rimmed from exhaustion, but blazed with determination. The aliens made a critical miscalculation. They presumed our most advanced technology was on display. They didn't realize how much we maintain classified, how many breakthroughs we've achieved but never deployed. And they certainly didn't anticipate Project Seraphim, added General Rivera with grim satisfaction. On screens throughout the command center, feeds showed dormant facilities around the globe abruptly activating. Hangar doors built into mountainsides slid open, underground silos unsealed, and from them emerged aircraft unlike anything publicly acknowledged. Angular, midnight black vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 30 years of reverse engineering from the Roswell incident, murmured Vice President Harper. Never envisioned we'd actually require their utilization. The pilot neural interfaces are online, reported the Seraphim squadron commander from her cockpit, her voice calm despite the unprecedented nature of the mission. Gravitational displacement drives functioning at optimum capacity. Weapon systems primed. President Reynolds surveyed the room, meeting the eyes of each nation's representative on the Emergency Global Defense Council. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not solicit this conflict. We dedicated our resources to healing and preserving life, but they mistook our benevolence for frailty. His voice hardened. Let's demonstrate to them just how profound their error was. Across the planet, humanity's hidden fangs were bared, and they were far, far sharper than the Zorthans could have possibly envisioned. Evasive pattern Delta 9. Reconfigure shields to counteract their particle weaponry. Admiral Thraub bellowed as the righteous intervention asterisk shuddered violently under another human assault. 3 more Zorthan vessels vanished from tactical displays in rapid succession, their destruction marked by fleeting, silent flashes of light. "Their attack trajectories are unfeasible," Tactical Officer Mev shouted, his appendages blurring across control surfaces. "They're anticipating our maneuvers before we execute them." The main view screen displayed a terrifying sight. Sleek black human crafts moving with physics-defying agility, somehow predicting and countering Zorthan maneuvers that should have been unknowable to such a rudimentary species. Behind these frontline fighters came larger vessels, bristling with weapon systems that had not existed in any human military database the Zorthans had accessed. "How?" Thra demanded, of no one in particular. 3 planetary rotations ago, they were launching chemical rockets. Their most advanced fighters utilized primitive jet propulsion. Strategic Officer Kep, his color permanently fixed in the pale hue of extreme stress, looked up from his analysis station. "They were concealing their true capabilities, Admiral. Or perhaps they evolved them specifically to counteract us. Their adaptation rate surpasses anything in our historical records." Another blast rocked the flagship, sending crew members tumbling across the command sphere. "Shields at 18%, Grill reported frantically, attempting to reroute power. "Unidentified energy signature penetrating our defensive fields." Outside, the Seraphim Squadron executed a flawless formation attack, their neural interfaces enabling the pilots to function as a single devastating entity. Major Layla Kwan, Squadron leader, didn't need to issue verbal commands. Her thoughts translated directly into tactical coordination among her 12 pilots. Asterisk target? The command vessel Asterisk, she thought, and instantly her squadron adjusted, focusing their prototype quantum disruption beams on the largest Zorthan ship. Inside that ship, Admiral Thra watched in horror as the supposedly impenetrable shields of Asterisk, the righteous intervention. Asterisk began to fail systematically. "New contact approaching," Vel called out. "Evasive energy signature, it's Admiral, it's unlike anything in our database." The view screen shifted to show a massive human vessel emerging from behind Earth's moon. Its design was radically different from the fighters, less graceful, more brutally functional. It bristled with what appeared to be an enormous particle accelerator ring integrated into its structure. "The imbeciles," Kep whispered. "They've mounted their rudimentary CERN technology onto a spacecraft." Before anyone could respond, the human vessel's central ring began to glow with escalating intensity. A coherent beam of unfathomable energy lanced out, slicing through 3 Zorthan cruisers as if they were composed of vapor. Aboard the UNSC, Hippocrates, named in bitter irony after the father of medicine, General Rivera observed the successful initial deployment of the hastily weaponized particle accelerator. "For Boston General," she stated quietly, "for every hospital, every patient, every healer they struck down." Admiral Thra comprehended in that moment that the Zorthan fleet was doomed. They had catastrophically misjudged humanity, not just their medical practices, but their capacity for righteous fury when innocents were harmed. "All vessels," he transmitted on the fleet-wide channel, his voice heavy with the weight of his fatal miscalculation. "Prepare to—" The remainder of his order was lost as Asterisk. The righteous intervention Asterisk disintegrated into 1 billion fragments under the combined onslaught of humanity's avenging forces. The escape pod tumbled through the void, its navigation systems barely functional after the desperate launch from the disintegrating Zorthan flagship. Inside, 5 survivors huddled in stunned silence. Commander VX, Science Officer Jess, Communications Officer Vel, Lieutenant Pri, and a gravely injured Admiral Thra. "Stabilizing our trajectory," Vel announced, her voice hollow as she interfaced with the pod's rudimentary controls. "We should attain the emergency rendezvous point in approximately 28 cycles." No one acknowledged her report. They were too consumed by the magnitude of what they had witnessed. The utter annihilation of the most advanced battle fleet in the known galaxy at the hands of a species they had grievously underestimated. Admiral Thra's breathing was labored, his exoskeleton cracked and leaking vital fluids despite the emergency medical patches. "The data," he rasped. "Secure the observational data. The Galactic Council asterisk must asterisk know. Know what exactly? Commander VX inquired bitterly. That we committed the most egregious first contact blunder in recorded history? That we assaulted medical facilities because we were too conceited to complete our cultural analysis prior to intervening? They need to comprehend humans, Thraw insisted, his color fading dangerously, what they genuinely are. Through the pod's diminutive viewport, Earth was still discernible, a blue marble receding into the distance, deceptively tranquil from this vantage point. But the space surrounding it recounted a different tale. Debris fields where Zorthan ships had been, and the unmistakable signatures of human vessels methodically scanning the wreckage. They're being thorough, Lieutenant Pre observed. Methodical, ensuring there are no further threats. And reclaiming our technology, Jess added grimly. They'll advance their capabilities even further. The pod's communication system abruptly crackled to life, startling all 5 survivors. A human voice speaking in flawless Zorthan filled the cramped space. Attention, Zorthan escape vessel. This is General Elena Rivera of the United Earth Defense Force. We are tracking your departure vector. Be advised that you are permitted to depart our solar system solely because we elect to permit it. The Zorthans exchanged startled glances. We have deciphered your language, your technology, and your intentions, the human continued. We comprehend that your assault was predicated on a misinterpretation of our medical practices. This does not exonerate your actions, but it elucidates them. Admiral Thraw gestured weakly for Vel to open a response channel. This is Admiral Thraw of the Zorthan Expeditionary Fleet, he responded, his voice barely audible. We concede our calamitous error. We believed we were halting torment, not assailing healing centers. There was a pause before the human replied, Kia lo them. Remarkable, isn't it, Admiral? How readily noble intentions can precipitate atrocity, when coupled with arrogance and inadequate comprehension. None of the Zorthans could dispute that assessment. You will convey a message to your leaders, General Rivera continued, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. Earth is now cognizant of the broader galactic community. We are aware we are not solitary, and we have demonstrated what transpires when our healers are imperiled. The transmission concluded with a final statement that would haunt the survivors for the remainder of their lives. We have transmitted the coordinates of your homeworld to every military command center on Earth. We possess no immediate intentions to visit, but should any Zorthan vessel approach our solar system again without explicit invitation, we will deem it an act of war. And this time, we will not confine our response to your military assets. As the transmission ceased, the 5 survivors sat in stunned silence. They asterisk no asterisk, Jess finally whispered. They are aware of where our homeworld is located. How? Our security protocols are impenetrable. Evidently not, VX replied bitterly. The pod continued its solitary journey through the darkness, bearing its cargo of vanquished warriors and the most crucial intelligence report in Zorthan history. 27 cycles later, the survivors stood before the Zorthan High Council. Their appearance was shocking to the assembled officials. They were emaciated, their exoskeletons dulled by stress and inadequate nutrition. Admiral Thraw had to be supported by a medical hovering device, his injuries too grave for complete healing during the voyage. You stand before this council as the sole survivors of a fleet comprising 57 vessels and over 12,000 personnel, Supreme Counselor 6 stated, her tone meticulously neutral. Elucidate yourselves. For the subsequent 3 hours, the survivors recounted everything. The initial observations, the fatal misinterpretation of human medical facilities, the disastrous benevolent intervention, and the overwhelming human response. When they concluded, the council chamber was deathly silent. Permit me to comprehend this correctly, General Krax finally stated. These humans, whom we perceived as rudimentary and fragmented, not only annihilated our technologically superior fleet, but also deciphered our language, breached our security protocols, and now possess the coordinates of our homeworld? Affirmative, General, VX confirmed, and they have likely reverse-engineered any technology they salvaged from our demolished vessels. Science Minister ZF's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with agitation. How could a species progress so swiftly? It defies all evolutionary paradigms. Admiral Thraw, summoning his remaining strength, addressed the council directly. With respect, Minister, we have been posing the incorrect inquiries. The pertinent question is not asterisk how asterisk they advance so rapidly, but asterisk why asterisk they concealed their true capabilities. He paused, his breathing labored. I had ample time to contemplate during our voyage home. I believe humans compartmentalize their civilization in manners we cannot fathom. Their healers concentrate exclusively on healing. They dedicate their entire lives to preserving and prolonging life. Their warriors concentrate exclusively on warfare, developing technologies and strategies that remain concealed until required. Their scientists pursue knowledge for its own sake, frequently developing theoretical capabilities years or decades prior to practical implementation. And when imperiled, particularly when their healers are threatened, these compartmentalized facets of their civilization unite with devastating efficacy. Admiral Thraw's color faded further as he delivered his final assessment. Venerable Council, I advocate we classify humanity as a Category 1 civilization. Do not engage. Furthermore, I propose we disseminate this classification to all spacefaring species in the Galactic Accord, not as a gesture of hostility, but as a caveat. A caveat of what precisely? Supreme Counselor 6 inquired. Admiral Thraw's response was somber and clear, despite his failing strength. That humanity is a species of contradictions. They heal with the identical fervor and dedication with which they wage war. Their aptitude for benevolence is matched solely by their aptitude for righteous retribution when that benevolence is mistaken for frailty. They are a species that denominates their most potent worship after the progenitor of medicine. He looked each council member in the eye before concluding, They dispatched a message with us, council members, not merely in words but in deeds. Assault their healers, and they will dispatch their angels of death. And may the ancestors aid any civilization imprudent enough to commit the identical blunder we did.